can join together all these groups, the student groups and the anarchist groups and the UK Uncut groups and all these things, and it says we'll have a big pan group that covers all those things, and maybe we'll even have it in the square mile, who knows, smiley face, exclamation mark. And that being shown to him showing it to me, he's just going, man, this is fucking weird. And it is weird. And there's probably a really simple explanation for it too. But without the simple explanation, and left weeks to fester, well, only 5 days to fester, that all adds to the other bits that are all unanswered. Which adds up to that there's like people travelling around educating and demonstrating how to do the 99% thing. And there's an invisible belief system in that which can mind control people, and what I'm witnessing is people not realising that the process that's so divisive, that most of the people are defending against a few people who look like troublemakers. And they're not really. I'm a philosopher, I'm not a troublemaker, but I know that earlier in this I looked like a troublemaker just for sitting beside one.
Okay. I hear what you're saying.
So
I can explain a bit of history on that one. You're going back 10, 20 years of protest movement, that every 5 years has a slightly different name. That is whatever. Sorry.
Yeah, no, go for it. Yeah.
It's bank accounts and how it's
people
connected.
People who did like Greenham Common, things changed up to what people who got involved with the road protests. Some of the road protests became reclaimed streets. Some of the reclaimed streets went into international protests from Birmingham G8, went out to Genoa, Prague, Seattle. It went international, and it always is international, and there is an international link with lots of people all over. It came back to this country and became some parts of Climate Camp. Climate Camp, for whatever reason, had a massive meeting about. It was only attended by a certain number of people. It was very controversial within Earth First News and others about disbanding National Climate Camp, mainly because they've been riddled by infiltrators, government, blah, police, which we all know, the Mark Kennedy case or whatever. And so National Climate Camp had a big meeting at Moncton or something and disbanded, which a lot of people who weren't in the meeting went, it wasn't fair, it wasn't democratic, we're not happy, Climate Camp was a good thing. And regional climate camps continued. So South Coast Climate Camp last year occupied somewhere in Lewis, whatever. I'm sure that some people within Climate Camp who also been involved since the M11, the road protest days and Reclaim the Streets, Roger Geffen is one example, a person I know, have long been planning, and in many of their chats talk about bigger, wider movements. People's Global Action is one of them, that brings together all different groups of people all over the world, nationally, internationally, quick history, her story, our story, tribe story, sharing from Phoenix here, but basically that unites people across the planet, from indigenous cultures, from students, from trade unions, from protesters, from all different cultures and things, and does a big protest. And I'm sure that some of them will have involved in moving this into the Occupy movement and a new name, whatever it's called, going on from Reclaim Streets and Climate Camps into an Occupy movement, and there are many different groups and people involved with that. We've got a bigger connection now with the unions than has ever happened before, students, other groups, and I think some of those people have long been planning the Square Mile, right going back to the punks in the 1970s doing Stop the City. June 18th, 1999, we're involved with, went into the city, we got into the London International Futures Exchange building, nearly shut down all their computers, got kicked out, turned into a big riot, and now, once again, back at Paternoster Square. People are ongoing, and this is part of a much bigger thing than any of us, and it is a movement on movements and things like that.
Should this be like really scary? No. Just a small query. Why, the meeting where Climate Camp said we're going to disband, didn't they leave the kind of window open for another camp in 2012? Because that's what it said in the article I was reading. They said we're holding it open. And then, so when I thought, oh, well, the bank account we use is the Climate Camp bank account. And then when you see certain people who have been to Climate Camp several years running, walking around with a collecting tin saying now everyone needs to pay for their dinner because there's no money in the bank account. And you wonder.
Sorry, at a Climate Camp?
No, upstairs. Just upstairs. Just upstairs. This is only a few days ago.
Chatting about this. Like, she's got a point to make about the present moment.
The thing is that we really need to make this. We really have to have this discussion, which is why we need people like you.
Yeah.
We're talking about the way we communicate.
Yeah.
Right? The way we communicate now, the way you don't just walk into a situation and start shouting at someone about this because we've all been sort of really paranoid about it, but the way we keep a way of communicating in which we can have these conversations without distrusting each other, and this is what I found so utterly different. And the first moment I walked in this today was I thought, oh, okay, this has changed, and also, do I really want to be here? Because people have really started talking in this really physically aggressive way, in this really confrontational way that is very not productive, just not productive. And I've got a degree in philosophy. I love, inquisitive thinking. You've got to be analytical. You've got to be confrontational. But at the same time, I thought we were talking about not whether this is.
We're not defending drunks. That's what's being said.
Exactly.
We are not defending
And
drunks.
the thing about Danny, it's just an example.
Yes.
It was just an example of what kind of communication we're talking about. We don't want to reinforce this way of communicating. And I think this is all this is about. And this is actually immensely threatening to not only this building, the entire movement.
The entire world, man.
How we put things to each other, my mate, is community.
Well, what happened to Danny has just happened to me with 15 people standing at the door saying, get out, and it's like, hang on,
You
what
didn't
for?
shout at me, to be honest. The Danny situation was entirely different.
No, but what's
I was getting shouted at and the man handled. I done nothing wrong. You did grab me up.
Philosophically, it's groupthink.
You grabbed me up.
So
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
the group
That wasn't my
attacks,
voluntary
and
action,
naturally
that's
nobody
assault.
realises they're doing it if they're
Of course it
inside.
is. You shouldn't be touching another man. I've done nothing
Very
wrong.
true.
Actually,
Should we
I
talk
thought you
about
knew a
this way
lot.
of
Assault
communication?
is verbal.
Instead of-
Battery is actually.
Common assault.
Is actually physical.
Common assault is just even just a
Oh,
push assault.
direct point. Sorry,
Seriously.
One of the
Verbal
small things,
assault.
because it's to do with what you were saying.
Disengage.
The only thing I'm trying to do is definitely not defend drunks is that at the moment you're going, there's a communication problem and we can't communicate because of it and we need to solve that, and your way is to kind of like get the drunks out, shut the drunks up.
I didn't say that.
Well, okay,
No,
that's
that's a
one
general
solution
thing.
that's been
Oh,
put
right,
forward.
okay.
yeah.
No, that's wrong.
Yeah.
It's a general thing going
But
around.
that is just treating the symptoms, and I'm saying we just need to treat the causes. If we can get rid of the hostility within the building, then people like Danny won't be kicking off all the time. It's not that he's bringing it in, it's here already, and he's responding to it. The problem is
triggering.
here,
No
inside
excuse.
us and inside
It's
our
not an
group.
excuse.
no
It's not an excuse.
I'm
It's
not
not
trying
an
to excuse
excuse.
it, I'm
It's
just trying
happening
to
now,
explain
and
it.
Danny's not here.
I'm just trying to
To be
explain
quite
it.
frank,
like
I
that.
don't care. If he can't control himself to that degree, but we're not talking about
It's
that.
happening here in the room right now. There's a guy here, and there's a guy here, and there's other people, and people in this moment are not remembering peace. They're
I think we're quite
intense.
peaceful at the
It's
moment.
very
actually.
tense.
So
Be
have a
real
look at
with
otherwise
it.
it's
It's very
It's very tense.
Okay, I got a point. The way we talk to people, the way we drop things on like headstrong stuff, if you go up to someone and go rah 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 rah, immediately get their shields up, their ankles up, they're going to go rah rah back at you. If you go and talk to them, hello mate, what's your name? And
Be
you
real.
talk to them a bit, and then you get to the point about some difficult thing you might have to bring up with them. It always helps. There is not a situation where people are excluded because they are drunk, because they are of whatever walk of life or blah or whatever. It's more a situation of how they behave around a community, around a group. Now, people have been discussing ongoing, and will keep to discuss, and as Connor brought up the process, and one of the African women, Karina, brought up the British, she said, I think, there's issues that are being brought up that we are discussing at the movement that people find really difficult to discuss and go through. But they are things that our society, our group, and our movement, that is a reflection of society, is having to deal with. The whole, whatever you want, violence, non-violence, racism, sexism, how we relate to women, men, blah, blah, blah. But the point is, each individual is responsible for their behaviour and how they work on it. If they drink outside and they come in here drunk, if they're not drinking inside, that's not a problem for us. We're asking people not to drink inside, but it's more about their behaviour. If they are verbally, physically, it's more physically violent or threatening violence or threatening fights or angry, shouting and creating, disturbing the community's peace, tranquility and things, then they will be talked to by a group from Tranquility and Security who will. This group is fucking patient and does work things through in group circles. Look how long we've spent on this. When those are a squat fight group, so they get angry, they throw people out. There's always, and I've seen situations escalate because people won't hear 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 perspectives on the situation and hear and understand a bit more. I think we've cleared up a few points there. There was a few conspiracy theories on or whatever thing is, a bit more on the climate camp thing, there's a bit on the Bank of Ideas bank account thing, but some other company registered it somewhere, whatever. But we
It's not some other company though, is it?
together.
We have to find out.
Hang on, can I
This
just
is
say?
perfect time to ask him.
We need to work all these
No,
things
no, no.
out, particularly
You're accusing.
how we talk
Okay,
to
fair
each
enough.
other and how we create or don't create situations is very important. How we relate it and how we work it out with each other, and we need to work it out.
Well, can we have a meeting sometime tomorrow discussing on the sort of stuff that I found out and why people are angry? Because there is an underlying reason why people are
It's
not
dead
impressed
interesting, man.
with what I'm actually saying.
On Climate Camp and Bank of Ideas
Yep.
as a company that was
Yep.
Have an
and
open discussion about
And
it.
there's much more. People like Ronan, what I'm finding out about him, and all sorts of information. I'll let you go through all my emails, and you'll look at them and you'll see my side, you'll see their side, and you'll see I'm not instigating. I'm just asking questions to get to the bottom and finding a lot of stuff out.
Don, one thing you will find with me, having run nearly 18, 20 years of community centres, is I spend a lot of time actually getting them to sit around and listen to the second and third and the fourth and the fifth opinion. By the time you've heard the fourth and the fifth, you realise that the first two people who came to you and said, this situation, I'm going to do my version, this is my version, the fourth person changes your mind, the fifth person changes your mind, and the sixth person. So you've got some information you want to share with the group, that could be a good thing, but we all need to de-escalate. We've had
Well, this is all I want to do.
arguments and grief, and we all need to be patient and work it out with each other and not stir it up and not up the ante and work it out, because sometimes there are explanations when we share all our bits of knowledge.
Sorry, I have my hands up for ages. And it was going back to what you were saying about the drunks causing problems, and that's happened, and people with mental health issues. That's happened in St Paul's, and that's what's happening in our society. And of course, in the community, you're going to get a smaller fraction of that. That is what we've been standing up in court. I've been at St Paul's in the court case, using as our defence that we want to be the change of whatever. So come on, let's think about it like that instead of just booting people out straight away. We're using it in court as our defence about being a better society. So
we don't boot them out.
but that's what we're talking about here as well. It's the same
transparency.
thing.
Is a working group transparency? Is this even ratified by the GA? Because we have a
Closing circle soon. Right.
I don't think you get me, my friend.
working group. You're not in a working group, then.
Right, this is another rule and a label. I'm trying to be free from control, and I think by doing this, I'm trying to lead by example. But I don't want to be followed, by no means. But what I'm saying is, what I've studied in law, I would not put my name down on anything to do with this Occupy movement, because it will make you liable in a courtroom. And I saw weeks before the City of London put their memo out trying to make this a terrorist movement. I predicted that weeks before, going. The thing is, well, we've all been fucking labelled and watched anyway. The thing is, if they can categorise and label you, this is how they make and pass statute through Parliament. They'll have their little problem reaction solution, and then they can pass things through. Now, if they get to the point where it's all done through a high court, you can, in the St Paul's case, they're looking at Article 10 and 11 of the Human Rights Declaration. For instance, that's the right to free assembly, the right to protest. What that is, if that goes through the High Court and they're saying that doesn't actually count anymore, they can actually take them rights away from you. This is how they take your liberties away.
So something very relevant. Have any of you spoke to John, the Greek guy with dreadlocks in the back of his head? Well, he lives here.
Hang on, you just butted in. Please let me finish, because this is about the transparency.
This is exactly what I'm saying.
Oh, hang on. No, fuck. No, sorry. You. Right. The thing is, I don't label myself to be tied to it, but I still want to help people, whether it be by making chai or healing or teaching people some law knowledge, or being the thorn in the side which might wind you up every now and again. If your brothers and sisters will wind you up, and you've got to learn to live with that, because I've not sat there and said to everybody, we've got to get you out because I think you're a problem because of this you've done. I don't go around pointing the fingers like that. I would sit there and I would talk to you, and if I think I can't address it, I would say, sorry my friend, I've got to stay away from you.
I've tried to talk to you before, and you've yelled it in a megaphone, and it really pissed me off in front of the tech.
Well, you've mentioned that 3 or 4 times now.
Yes,
Well, so that makes it irrelevant.
And I said, you're ludicrous and you keep making things up, but it's pointless,
I
keep
did not
going.
fucking make that up.
You phoned up the police and ambulance, mate, saying you'd been spiked with acid and tried blaming it on someone in the camp until I pulled you up on it. That's why you've got the difference with me,
No.
because I was very vocal about it,
What the
because...
hell are you talking about?
These things happen, guys.
But this is just going to cause arguments, not solutions, so let's forget
Now
about
you're making
that.
shit up, and you're denying what actually happened.
I actually find that you're being quite aggressive. You know.
I may be aggressive because I'm tired of people You said you were going to go.
Don't need to get cut from down.
I didn't do that. I didn't do that.
We're stuck in here for a
I didn't
I
actually
find
do
this more
that.
constructive than
That
kicking
was-
someone out on the street.
You're not stuck in here.
You can leave
That's what it was about before.
It, they done it as a joke in front of
You're
me.
not stuck here.
That's that.
You're not stuck here. Whatever mental belief you have that makes you think you're
I'm
stuck
sure I
here,
instigated that as well.
You are free.
I put the pen in their
What's your
hand and I
reason
made them
why you're
write
here?
it.
You
No.
here until you evict Dom. Is
If
that
it's
your
about
reason?
healing, then what's that about?
Is that your reason
Let's
for
let this girl
this?
talk.
Maybe
Let's
this
let
is
this
going
girl
to
talk.
solve
You're,
our
you're still in
problem.
the same room.
I
Why?
did-
If you guys
Sean,
left
Sean,
the room,
I
that,
did
might,
not.
that might change the situation.
I
Yeah,
did.
yeah, she's got a technical point.
I did not.
I
did not.
Yes, but you're still in the room.
She's
that
got a
it
technical
not.
point.
You're in
Don't
the
bother
room.
raising your
happened
voice.
How long do we think
So why don't
That's
you
how they
leave
make
the
you
room and
lose.
then we'll see about diplomacy.
Might have to.
Okay? Because this is
You guys
Angela's
think carrying
room.
there peaceful
The things you shouted at me, I did not do.
I'm not saying you did it, but you're in a
You've
bloody
just
room.
shouted at me again and again.
Sean and Dew, hold your gap for a moment and let the girl talk. What were you trying to say?
I'm going to shout for a closing circle.
I can
so
hear you, mate.
usually takes me about 10 to 20 minutes to gather, so would that be alright?
Can they hear you?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, sure. Thank you.
No, they can't really hear you.
At me, you're not true.
Are we in the room that the woman was forcibly evicted?
Again, the phrasing of the question, it doesn't sound true to me. It's the phrasing that's wrong.
Yeah.
The accusation.
Well, she was kind of.
She was in here. It wasn't really wasn't reached by discussion.
We're all in
They
that
came
room
here.
that you're
Not
talking
about
about.
this